All right, Nick. It is a Sunday night edition of Chatterbox Reds. It's a winning one, which is nice. Reds find a way to win the series against the New York Mets, and to be frank, I don't know if it feels great. I don't know if it feels worse. It is one of those mixed emotions that I find myself in, which is, quite frankly, normal with this baseball team and this season that has been 2025. Yes, on one hand, very thankful that they found a way to win the series. They bounced back like they almost always do, Nick. Like they almost always do. The question at the end of the day, is it going to be too little, too late, or $1 short? It doesn't matter by the end of the season. It feels that way, but at the same time, I must admit, as soon as you could kind of get to a point where you can say, you know what, it's dead, they do find a way to always bounce back and make you feel like there's a sliver of hope. And that's where we stand on this Sunday night, which is September 7th of 2025, Nick.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, they've done just enough to keep somehow hope alive here. Man, they've won some big series this year. Like, they've had some really impressive series wins throughout the year, which kind of, I guess, makes it the most frustrating that you're, in the spot that they're in. But yeah, I mean, man, they've had some very impressive series wins. Like they played good baseball against a good Mets team, a $300 million Mets team. They played good baseball all weekend, and yeah, I mean, they still have a chance. You keep fighting, and you hope that maybe. You know what? You could pull off a Dayton Dragons and go 18-1 in your last 19 games.
Yeah, well, I think that they're at the point now where I have to double check. I think they had 18 games left. You can correct me if I'm wrong here a little bit later in the show. But my point in saying all of that mostly is at this point you could sit here and try to guess or try to factor in how many wins it's going to actually take to get over the finish line, and it gets a lot more confusing. This is where the disheartening part of this all comes in, because they had a legit chance if they played what I would consider decent baseball over the last 3 weeks, and they just failed to do that. They failed to do that, and they've put themselves now in a position where they need to play almost near perfect when they've already blown the opportunities that I think that they needed to take advantage of. One of those, Nick, to be quite frank, and this is where the beauty of baseball, I think, lies to a certain extent. You play 162 games. You do. And for all intents and purposes, I do understand the sentiment of saying that, it's not that big of a deal. It's just one game, or it's not that big of a deal because we're not playing our best baseball. It's only May. It's only May. The beauty of baseball is that you do that, and you can say that all you want. But the more I've done this show, and maybe it's warped my perspective of it all, because I was one of the folks that used to say, hey, it's just 1/162, not a big deal when leaving the ballpark in a May baseball game back in the day. I used to think that 100%. And to a certain extent, I guess if you have a solid, really, really solid team that more or less is probably going to make the postseason, that's fair and that's true. But when you're a fringe team, you're a mid team, whatever term you'd like to use, a borderline playoff team, it all matters, man. And it does. And I feel like it rears its ugly head in the past 3 seasons that we've watched this team, where you can get crushed when you don't play good baseball early on, when you're playing weaker opponents, when you're playing teams that are not better than you. And that's really, when you break this whole thing down, in my opinion, from start to finish, sometime in December or January, when you kind of lay all of this out, I really think you're going to look back on a lot of those series earlier in the year where you just didn't find ways to win series against bad teams. The one that comes to mind pretty evidently is the Rockies. You had a homestand against the Rockies, a very bad baseball team, where we were going into the series hoping they were going to sweep, and we were a Will Benson triple away from getting swept by the Rockies. That's the type of mentality or forgetfulness, perhaps, some people have when it comes to the season when it's 162 games. The truth is that we're going to now have to go, I don't know. I've tried to sit here and rack my brain around this. Is it 15-3? 14-4. That's where I'm at, and maybe it won't take to get to that many, but you got a couple teams you got to jump ahead of now too. That I don't know if we really want to get into the weeds of that right now at the beginning of this show, but the truth is we went from one team we're trying to chase now to having about 3 or 4 in the mix. Ultimately, maybe it won't matter if you play the amount of winning baseball it's going to take to get in the postseason to begin with, but I'm sure we're going to talk about all that and more, and the fact that Hunter Greene just absolutely shoved, and most people aren't going to probably appreciate it because they didn't even probably see the whole, I guess what I would call all the pitches in the game. So Nick,
I watched every pitch today. My wife took the kids over to her parents. I watched every pitch. I enjoyed it. It was great. It was really nice. Like you log on Twitter, no one's talking about the game. Like I'm just watching a game in peace. The Reds are getting no hit, and no one's talking about it. Like this is nice. This is kind of enjoyable. There's 19. There's officially 19 games left. They have a 4-game series against the Cubs. That's probably what the game you're missing because you were counting the series up. There's a 4-game series against the Cubs, so 19 left. What do the Reds have to do? Who knows? I mean, they could go. You could go 14-5 and still miss the playoffs if the Mets play great. You could play 500 and make the playoffs if the Mets crap the bed like they did a couple weeks ago. It just really depends on what do the Mets do. And trying to figure out what that team's going to do, good luck with that. They've been a volatile team all year. There is no one else ahead of the Reds anymore. They're tied with the Giants currently. Yeah. Everyone else is back behind them. So there is no one.
They're half a game ahead of 2 teams, Nick. Come on. I mean, with all due respect, there's more than just one team left in the mix now. Like we can at least admit.
Sure,
that.
the Giants are the only team that I think you probably would really be, I think, worried about. I mean, I don't know.
All these teams caught us, brother.
Yeah, it's possible. The Cardinals are tanking right now. The Diamondbacks sold off their whole team.
Yeah, and they're a half game back.
But again, I think if you make up 4 games against the Mets, I don't know. Maybe the Giants are maybe the only team that there's maybe some world where you go 13-6 and they go a game better than that. I just don't see if you go 13-6, I don't see the Diamondbacks or Cardinals. And the Reds play the Cardinals, so they would have to win some of those games anyways.
Listen, there are teams that have to face off against each other where it's going to help one way or the other. But I also would openly admit that if you don't win, somebody's going to catch up with you and or pass you. Like, it goes both ways. You can sit here and be like, hooray, the Giants play the Mets. Okay, well, if you don't win those games, somebody's going to stay with you and or pass you. So it's that's why it feels like to me they're going to have to do something. Again, you're saying it's 19 games total. All right, I'm not going to obviously say they got to go, whatever it would be, 15-4, but it feels like they're going to have to go something along those lines. 14 and what would be the math? 5. We'll see. I mean, ultimately, we shall find out. But they won today. And again, we've already done 2 shows since Friday night, but it feels like all of those times, Nick, all the times that we were sitting here saying this team needs to do something special, we keep kicking the damn can down the road, dude. We just said against the why can't I think of, I'm having a brain fart, the series right before the Mets was the Cardinals, thank you. And the Blue Jays. No, the Blue Jays. If we picked up a game on the Mets against the Blue Jays, then we could go into that series thinking if we swept them, we'd only be this. Well, we didn't pick up a game. I think we lost a game. And then all of a sudden we go into the Mets and we don't sweep them. We take 2 or 3. And now we sign ourselves. I'm just being funny here to a certain extent. Now we sit here on Sunday night show and we say, well, we could take advantage of it by doing this next best thing. Oh, I mean, I tell you one thing we have done a good job of. We have survived on the ventilator for longer than the doctor has expected us to survive on it. I'll give us credit for that, my friend. So that's where my analogy lies. We do have some super chats I want to get to before we start the show. So let's do that right now, and then we can jump in to the traditional box score recap and the DSE deep drive of the day, and I am looking forward to that. Some big-time supers, as always, coming from our man, Michael Roth. He's coming in with a crazy hot take, too, I must say. I don't hate it, but I think it is 100% a hot take, and he justified it by calling it that. He says, hot take, Marte will have a better career than Elly. Boom. Hashtag ATOBTTR. The crazy thing is this, Roth. Like, if you would have said that at the end of last year, you would have been absolutely crushed. And I think that's just the part of fandom that basically lies within all of us, is that, we are subjective to perhaps what's right in front of us. And maybe that might be what you have or are having happen to you right now. But I'll also say, I don't know. I mean, if you're going to count in kind of, it's just hard to say. I'm not going to sit here and act like that's a horrific take, because I do think Marte has a chance to be a great player. And I'm not going to downplay the fact that he can't be. I'm not going to sit here and act like Marte might not exceed expectations significantly. But I also think we're all catching Elly right now at a time where he's not playing his best baseball, and we'll find out whether or not he's capable of rebounding. But I know Nick's already going to come and pull out a bunch of stats that are going to show you that he's still a better player than Marte despite all of this, and that very well may be true as well. Ultimately, the thing that sucks most about all of this, Nick, in my opinion, and this is where I was going to go tonight, and I'll save some of it so I don't go too far down the well here before we even get in the first topic, is that I think that, and then people are going to think that I'm protecting all these young guys, but I'm going to put them all in the same boat, and that's McLean, that's Elly, that's Marte. I don't know if you want to put CES in there, but I'll also put Sal Stewart in there now. You know what this franchise ultimately has done is we've put a lot of these guys on pedestals, and we've put them as the guys that are supposed to save the franchise, and they're going to get us over the proverbial hump, because really that's the only hope that we've had. And the truth is, it's not totally fair to those guys, because they're trying to figure out how to be big league baseball players on a major league roster before they're probably totally ready. It seems like we're doing maybe the one thing that all these NFL franchises do when they're not the best franchise, which is to do what? Draft some prospects early in the first round, tout them as being the ones that are going to save the franchise, running them out at quarterback their very first year, and then all of a sudden they struggle a little bit. Maybe they fail from time to time, and all of a sudden everybody throws their hands up and like, well, this guy sucks. Why isn't this guy any good? This guy's not good. And then all of a sudden Sam Darnold, like 4 years later, is maybe better than people thought he was, or Baker Mayfield perhaps is better than what Cleveland thought he was. And all of a sudden you're kind of scratching your head and being like, well, why are we always bad? I don't get it. Well, maybe it's because we always rely on guys that aren't totally ready to carry a franchise, and that might just be where we're at right now. Not sitting here suggesting they don't deserve to be in the big leagues, but I'm saying maybe I'm suggesting they're not ready to carry the torch for a team that's supposed to make the playoffs this earlier in their career. Take that however you wish. If you think I'm defending Elly or Marte or any of these guys, or putting I guess what we call it, like kind of protecting them, helicopter parenting them. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to call a spade, perhaps. Jacob Doyle said, they always say the crack of the bat just sounds different coming from a great hitter. Sal's home run Saturday was exactly that, a thing of beauty. So sounds like Jacob Doyle was at the game, perhaps. We shall find out. Rolf chimes in again, says, also, I have to go to Wally World. No free ads for the worst place on planet Earth to buy my 5-year-old niece a birthday gift for tomorrow, accepting Annie and all suggestions for a 5-year-old girl. So chat, you can get after it in the comments for gifting for Michael Roth. And then Mike Dean says, 2 nice wins, but I feel like a high schooler whose girlfriend has told him she wants to see other people and now keeps sitting next to him at lunch. Another wild analogy that we have for this baseball team from Mike Dean, which is somewhat appropriate. I get it. Yeah, it's we're getting mixed vibes at all times. Nick, not that I was trying to buy a ton of time for you, but I was buying a little bit of time for you to make sure that you got some of the nuts and bolts squared away, perhaps on the back end. Any thoughts, perhaps, before we jump into the Boschko recap from yourself? I know I said a lot. I know there's some things that you probably want to jump into and bite. So have at it if you'd like.
No, I'm good. Craig's behind the scenes, so we're in real good hands now. I guess my advice to Elly De La Cruz is the second you can, just try to go to the Dodgers. You can put up the exact same, actually significantly outperform Mookie Betts and get 150% more criticism. So that would be my advice to Elly. The second you can get into free agency, go to a big market, and don't play hurt. You know what? Don't play hurt. You know what? Next time you have a quad injury, just take off the season. That would be my advice.
So so we're now basically placing the blame of Elly's lack of production just for the last month and a half on the quad, but the quad was injured when? I'm just curious.
I think it's the quad. I think he had a tough year mentally, like losing his sister. I think it's mostly that kind of stuff. But
right. So
that'd be my advice. Get the hell out of Cincinnati as fast as you can.
Right.
There's no point.
But last year, just to be on the same page, Jake Fraley obviously struggled pretty mightily, and we were okay with saying Jake Fraley's just probably not the best player. Like, he's just
Fraley,
not a good
Elly
enough
De La
player.
Cruz. Yeah, I mean, that's two peas in a pod right there.
Well, I'm saying, like, one gets the blame for it, the other one maybe not as much. Just trying to, I'm just making sure we're on the same page. Like, I listen. I'm not here.
Elly was an all-star this year too, also, and
yeah.
does
But if we flip the
wins
seasons
above
around, Nick, he
by
wouldn't have been
significant.
If we flip the seasons around, he wouldn't even have been close to an all-star.
He's still 3.7 wins above replacement.
I'm talking about since the All-Star break. We're using All-Star break. We're using the All-Star break as saying he made the All-Star team. That was the first half of the season. The second half of the season, when this team obviously needed a little bit of a boost to get themselves to a spot where they might make the postseason, he's not been an All-Star.
That's true. All the games up to July did not matter. The fact that the Reds were even remotely competitive through July to still being in where they're at now had nothing to do with Elly De La Cruz.
No, I get it. I'm not saying that those didn't matter at all. But I guess where I'm at with this whole thing, and I understand the sentiment that some people have, is this. You can't have it both ways. Like, you can't say that this guy is a superstar, he's going to be one of the best players that this franchise has ever seen, and basically the hype that comes with him is going to be at least viewed upon as he's better than everyone else, so let's hold him to a higher standard. Then when you hold him to a higher standard, the standard then becomes a bunch of mid-baseball players around this team. Well, he's better than them, so he's good enough in our eyes. That's the standard, I guess, that we're holding him to a certain extent. And again, I'm not trying to say this is all on Elly. At some point, you got to ask the organization from a standpoint of whether or not they're developing guys, whether or not this organization is doing a good job of giving these guys the best chance for them to succeed. And that is a fair question too. So, and I would even say that could also be posed towards the likes of making sure that Gavin Lux now has to play left field. You ask Spencer Steer to play a new position. You ask Spencer Steer, I guess, to play hurt. What was it? You were talking about playing hurt. Well, I've been on Spencer Steer's case all year long about the fact that he's not been productive enough at first base, but I guess evidently he's been hurt all year long too. So people are being asked to play hurt, I guess. And again, to be fair, we don't even have very clear understanding or knowledge of how hurt these guys are. I would presume in a 162 game season, people are going to be banged up. Yeah, that's obvious. But hurt, banged up, two different things. I'd like to know the extent of maybe Elly and or Steer or even Matt McClain's injury to a certain extent of how bad these guys are. Because, Nick, to be fair, if we want to go outside the players, at some point you got to ask the organization, do we have a real good grasp on who's hurt and who's not? And if we don't, why don't we? And why do we keep asking these guys that are hurt to play? We need to have somebody else that can play to be able to perhaps have better players in those spots when they're not healthy. No? There's a lot there, I know. But
yeah, I don't know. I'm going to continue to err on the side of defending the guy that's been worth 12 wins above replacement since he came up midway through 2023. I know I'm crazy for that. I'm going to continue to kind of, maybe give him grace for having a bad month with some other circumstances that could have contributed to that. But you know what?
If that's the case, then how long?
What a year, man. That guy, we wanted him shipped out of this country a year ago this time, and now he's the face of the franchise, and Elly is a bum. It is wild.
I think that there's a fair and honest likelihood that we could meet in the middle of where some people are acting like Elly shouldn't be on the team and where some people are acting like Elly's has not been an issue. Obviously, neither one of those are true. Ultimately, I've put it this way. My frustration at this point is starting to shift away from the players and more towards the I guess people that are in charge of putting people in places to have success and having no backup plan if those people don't have success. If Elly is hurt or Elly needs a day off or we can't see, like, I guess here's my thing. If Tito gets all the credit in the world for being a Hall of Fame manager, for being a clubhouse guy and understanding the X's, understanding kind of the behind the scenes stuff and all these things, you're telling me that the best thing to do for Elly De La Cruz is to run him out there every single day in the 3-hole for a month and a half when he's produced the way that he has and act like nothing's wrong? Again, I'm not here to say that you're going to fix him overnight if you put him in the 8-hole or whatever, or you take some symbol. And people are going to think, let me be clear. I went just 3 minutes ago, before people start acting like I'm defending him again, 3 minutes ago, I said he's not been good enough, and I do think that there's some issues there, and I'm not going to give Elly the total pass on all of this. But then on the opposite side, if we're going to sit here and act like they know what's best for all these players, I have a hard time believing that Spencer Steer playing first base all year long when he was producing the way that he has is the right decision for Spencer Steer and this baseball team. And I'd also say, if you think playing Elly De La Cruz every single day when he's had this stretch of baseball for this long and he doesn't look himself at all to me, he doesn't look himself at all. There's no power to a certain extent when you know, I guess, yeah, he hit a double today. I'm not trying to say that it's not in there, but he doesn't look confident. He doesn't look like the free-flowing, fun-loving kid that came up when he first got here that stole bases every single time he got on base. That's not the player we got. And I guess my question ultimately is where did that player go? And I'm not going to blame anyone and everyone for the whole, the whole situation. It's not all Tito's fault. It's not all Chris Valleca's fault. Maybe it's not all Nick Kral's fault. And it's not all Elly De La Cruz's fault. But I the last thing I'll say is something has to give at least at some point. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting something to automatically fix itself. Maybe, Nick, the last thing, maybe if he was a 10-year big leaguer and Elly De La Cruz has spent a vast majority of time in this league, I would say, yeah, you can maybe let him stick it out. He's a grown man. He can figure it out. He's strong enough to do this. I'll openly say, I don't know if he is. I don't know if he is. He's too young just to automatically assume that you can throw him in the 3-hole, put him at shortstop every single day, and not worry about him being fatigued. But Emilio Pagan can be fatigued? And you've asked too much out of him, and he gets a bunch of days off? How does that work, is my question. And again, to be clear, I know it sounds like I'm criticizing Elly on one hand, because I am, and I'm also defending him on another, because I am. Because, Nick, to me, the truth lies somewhere in the middle of all this. That's all. And what happened on Friday night is tough. It's tough. And what happens, Nick, is you put a guy out there and you expose him to a certain extent when he's not going well, and you keep putting him in the heart of the lineup when he's not going well, and these things arise. That's all. And by the way, Noelvi Marte, to be clear, he swung at ball 4 too. He doesn't get the criticism because Elly came up after him, obviously. Gavin Lux had an opportunity to get a base hit, and nobody would have really talked about the Elly situation as much because the outcome would have been the Reds won, and who cares anymore because results only matter for most fans. But Nick, the narrative for Elly skyrocketed on Friday night, and nobody's going to watch the big hit that he gets, on Sunday, perhaps, if you want to call it that. And that's where this narrative lies, and it's understandable. Is where I'm at.
Don't forget, he moved over a run or two today with a ground ball to the right side. Let's not forget about that. All right. I do agree completely, though. I don't know why he's played every day. I think that he has. I think that Tito has been a little too player friendly in that regard because he knows that is important to Elly. I think they're absolutely insane that they've run him out, and it's not just like us or like Barry Larkin, who I have a lot of qualms with. But if Barry Larkin says a shortstop looks tired, I'm going to think that Barry Larkin probably has a good idea of that. I think of all the things that I could ask Barry Larkin for real, legitimate advice and his expertise on. I think like seeing if a shortstop or a player is tired, I think Larkin would be pretty good at that. And he said multiple times that he looks tired. So why do you keep having him play every single day? Why do you not take him out of the field more than once occasionally? Like, why don't you DH him like once a week until he gets back? Like every 4 or 5 games, didn't they DH him and then the next day he had a great game, or that was it the game he was a DH, he had a great game? I don't remember, but yeah, I do agree completely. I don't think they should have run him out there every single day. I mean, I think part of it is also the fact that Matt McLain was struggling so much.
100%.
And I think that was part of it, but I don't think they did. I don't think they did Elly any favors at all.
I don't think the front office did Elly any favors. Like this is where I get frustrated with Nick Krall a little bit, is because there was no backup option. God's honest truth, there was no backup option. Our backup option was a guy that missed all of 2024, that had a labrum issue, a shoulder injury, which, to be honest with you, is a really big injury for a guy that is going to come back and have to play a premium position, 1, and 2, be a guy that you're going to rely on to hit the baseball at a relatively high level in order to compete. That was our backup plan. In my opinion, if you asked Nick Krall before the season started, hey, what happened? I'm just hypothetically saying, if Elly were to get hurt, right, and knock on wood, that's the last thing anybody wants. But I'm just saying, if he did, you have to have some plan for that. What is the backup plan there? Is it to play Santiago Espinal every day? Is it to move Matt McLain to shortstop when he hasn't played all of 2024? It's a horrible plan. It's a horrible plan looking back on it. Now, having said that, I guess if you got a wager or bet or say whatever you want and say, well, if this happens, then the season's over anyways because we're cooked because we can't play without Elly De La Cruz. Okay, I guess that's the excuse we're going to use. But what it has done, it has put a lot of pressure on Elly to have to perform all year long, because if he struggles at all, they don't have a backup plan. There's nobody that obviously can give him 2, 3, 4 days off in a row if he needs it. And what's left of it is you got a manager who hasn't moved him out of the same position in the lineup all year long, despite how bad it's gotten. Which, again, sounds like I'm placing blame on everyone but Elly. But to be clear, I'm saying Elly needs to be better. But if he's not better, then someone needs to step in here and say, we need to help and do something different. And obviously, listen, Sunday night game, we'll talk about, or Sunday night's show should be about Sunday nights, or Sunday's game, excuse me. We'll do that, but we have not been on these airwaves since Friday. And Friday obviously was the tipping point for many Reds fans, if I had to guess. And the lasting impression that they're going to have about Elly De La Cruz and moving forward in 2026 is going to be what happened, more than likely, on Friday night. And it's the difference, Nick, between being, 4 back and 2 back. And sometimes, more or less, that might be the total difference. So, and to be clear, it's not all on Elly. We swung at ball 4, and we also didn't get a hit after Elly obviously struck out. So, they had other chances besides just the one at bat that obviously Elly didn't swing on, which made me think mentally he's not right. There's a mental block going on here, and I don't know how you fix it per se, but somebody that's making a lot of money down there at Great American Ballpark to be these guys as hitting coach and or mental game coach or whatever kind of manager, whatever term you would like to use, someone needs to have some answer. And it seems like the answer is let's just kick it to the side and act like it's not that big of a deal and keep moving on. All right. Nick, you did ask me to buy you some time. We went way over that. Let's do the box score recap and let's get into the game itself. How about that?
All right, Reds taking on the New York Mets. Rubber game of a 3-game series at Great American Ballpark. Hunter Greene on the mound against Brandon Sprout, making his big league debut. Hunter Greene came out absolutely on fire. He struck out the first 5 batters that he faced and 6 of the first 7. But batter number 8, Brett Beatty, hit a first pitch slider out of the park to right field. 1-0 Mets. The Reds did scratch across a run in the bottom of the 4th. Noelvi Marte walked. Marte then stole second base. Then he moved to third on a ground ball to the right side from Elly De La Cruz. Austin Hayes hit a sac fly to tie the game. But going into the 6th inning, Sprout had still not allowed a hit. The Reds finally got their first hit with 1 out in the 6th when Marte hit a weak blooper to right field. Elly then crushed a double at 107 off the bat to put the Reds up 2-1. Elly had some smart base running also to get to third base on the throw home. And then the next batter, Austin Hayes, smoked the ball at 105 miles per hour right past the drawn-in infield to make it 3-1. Hunter Greene came back out on the top of the 7th. He walked the leadoff batter, Pete Alonso, but then struck out the next 3 batters to finish off an incredible performance. 7 innings, 1 hit, 1 run, 2 walks, 12 strikeouts. Martinez went 1-2-3 in the 8th, and then the Reds went with Tony Santillan instead of Emilio Pagan in the 9th. Tony got the first batter, Francisco Lindor, out, but then Juan Soto crushed a home run to right center field to make it 3-2. The next batter, Pete Alonso, reached on a throwing error from Elly De La Cruz, and then Brandon Nimmo singled to put runners on first and second, but then Santillan got Starlin Marte to break his bat on a ground ball, and Elly and McLean turned a nice double play to end the game. Reds hang on to win 3-2. Reds take 2 of 3 from the Mets, now 72-71 on the season. Reds are 4 games out of a playoff spot with 19 games to play, and the Reds do now hold the tiebreaker over the Mets.
All right, deep drive of the day. Well, we got to go to AAA. Why not? You know, we got to do that from time to time on this show. Christian Encarnacion Strand hit his 10th home run in AAA Louisville, 111 off the bat, and it went 351 feet. DSC, they are a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. And thank you to John for sponsoring the Louisville Bats deep drive of the day. Thank you to John. I know that's exactly what he signed up for. Let's talk about some positive news. Hunter Greene, oddly enough, as I said before, on a day where more or less most Reds fans are probably preoccupied because they are watching something else, he was amazing. He was unbelievably good. And he, with the season on the line, showed up, threw the ball unbelievably well, 12 strikeouts, and was dominant. I mean, 101 in the 7th inning. And what more is there to say, I guess, about not only Hunter Greene, but the staff in general, because obviously the bullpen came in between Martinez and obviously Santillan and got the job done. So seems like this show, boy, I tell you what, there are times where it feels like it's a little bit of a broken record because we get on here and we talk about the same old, which is the starting pitching was excellent.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter Greene, if you didn't see it today, I mean, it was one of his best performances that he's ever. And I mean, this is a Mets lineup that came into this series on fire. They set a team record for their most home runs in the month of August. Their offense has been absolutely clicking. It's not been the reason that they're kind of having to fight off a team like the Reds. But he was incredible. 21 swing and misses, got his fastball up to 101.5. Hunter Greene has a 2.01 ERA over his last 25 starts. That goes back to July of last year. You just with Hunter Greene, it just, you hope that in 2026 you can get a full season out of him, because you get a full season out of him, he's legitimately, if you could tell me right now, Hunter Greene will make every start in 2026, I think he's got about as good a chance of anyone of winning the NL Cy Young. I think he's that good. He's that dominant. And yeah, I mean, man, he just won. And I know, like, we want to get Elly in the playoffs, and I know that maybe doesn't ring true as much for a lot of people right at this moment, but you really want to get Hunter Greene in the playoffs because in a short series, I mean, he just can absolutely win you a series on his own. He's kind of like Tarek Skubal was with the Tigers.
Listen, this team has the goods when it comes to matching up with anybody in the postseason for definitely a shortened series. I would even argue their chances of winning a series of the 3-game variety, 5-game variety is significantly better than obviously the 7-game, because then you can start to get maybe deeper into the bullpens. You can start to have to maybe expose a little bit more of your roster than you would over a 3-game set. But let's face it, Hunter Greene can go up against anybody in the league, and he has the capabilities of of showcasing why you can win with him against anyone in all of Major League Baseball. And the fact is, like, since the All-Star break, you've seen the stat, what was just like maybe 2 weeks ago, they were the best staff in all of Major League Baseball. I guess that kind of, Nick, in a way, is where the frustration lies in the deep-rooted cause of all of it, is because this is, this is one of the better, if not the best, performances from the starting pitching and bullpen. When you combine the two, I guess the starting pitching will mask a little bit of the bullpen, but from a staff perspective that we might see, and I don't want to over exaggerate here, but in the next 2 decades, this might be the best performance holistically from a staff that this Reds franchise will ever see. And I don't know if many people really truly grasp that. I think a lot of people watch this team on a night in, night out basis, and you take for granted what you get. But I don't know if it's replicatable. We'll see, obviously. And if it is, Nick, then you can count me in to being on the bandwagon moving forward, in the sense that I do think this team is not that far away. I guess the alternative is the concern that it's not this good, and we are just getting an all-time year from our staff, and Hunter Greene is a big part of that. If, as you said before, if he can stay healthy, it adds a whole nother layer of dimension to it. But let's face it. I mean, if Rhett Lauder comes back and he's as good as we hope him to be, if Chase Burns progresses and he develops the same way that perhaps Hunter Greene has been able to develop, then there are pieces that can kind of help fill the void of some of these guys if they do fall off a little bit. But overall, there's not much more to say about Hunter Greene. He's been as advertised. He's as good as people at one time thought he could be. And the best thing about it all is that we always talk about guys' ceilings and the prospects and how good can they be and blah, 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 blah. The truth is, it doesn't really matter until they're capable of showcasing they can actually do it. Right? The whole prospect is a suspect thing, which I'm not saying that you should buy into that narrative in totality. But the truth is that Hunter Greene is showcasing that he's not just a guy that's capable or possible or might have a ceiling of being one of the best pitchers in the league. He is one of the best pitchers in the league. So now the question ultimately lies in, and I'm going to be completely, again, a realist here, is how long can he sustain that and stay healthy? That, I guess, is the biggest question mark moving forward with Hunter Greene, because he's good. He, at this point, Nick, he has erased all doubt of how good he can be or is. He is that guy. Like, I hope people know that. Hunter Greene is that guy right now. And if he stays healthy, he's going to continue to be that guy. The only thing that could derail it, in my opinion, is the obvious, which is starting pitchers that are throwing this damn hard sometimes have an issue of staying healthy, and we'll see if he's capable of doing that.
Yeah, I would also just to your whole starting pitching talk, I think what Brady Singer's doing right now, I don't think he's getting enough talk. I mean, he's been incredible of late. And you still have him next year under control, and that's looking like a bigger and bigger deal as this goes along. You kind of thought when you got Singer it was really for this year, but still having him next year feels like a huge deal right now. Couple thoughts on Greene. It's funny. I remember Greene was probably, was it a Mariners game last year when he only lasted 4 innings in like late April, early May. And boy, the pitchforks were out for Hunter Greene. It's kind of wild how fast he's kind of flipped that narrative. The other thing with Greene is it's kind of wild how dominant his fastball has been, because I don't remember. I think almost every home run he's allowed since he's come back has been off of his slider, or most of them. And his slider has great numbers over the year. I mean, batters only coming into today $167. They do actually have a little bit higher slugging off of his slider than his fastball, which you wouldn't normally expect when that's your primary breaking pitch. But yeah, I mean, if he's able to kind of, and I think most of the sliders have been location, he's kind of left them. And I think that teams have been hunting his slider, which is kind of interesting. I think they've been hunting it a little bit. So it'd be interesting how he kind of navigates that. But it's just interesting that almost all the homers he's given up since he's come back have been off the slider.
Yeah, that's a fair point by you. I don't know if the the pitch mix, perhaps there's a reason over the other, or if it's just a coincidence that's happened. To your point, it doesn't seem like that's the right thing, but time will tell.
I have to look. I think a lot of them in first pitch sliders too. So I'm interested in how they kind of try to remedy that,
Right.
over his last final couple starts.
Listen, I do know this. I think when you get closer and closer towards the end of the season, right, the Reds haven't maybe been in the postseason hunt enough for us to really discuss this, but there's advanced scouting that happens, right, Nick, that at some point in the last, call it 20, 25, 30 games, a lot of these teams that are in the hunt are going to have a little more kind of know-how on your baseball team than they would have known before. Whether or not Hunter Greene he's not tipping his pitches, I'm not saying that. Whether or not maybe that word's got around that somehow he's a little heavy on a certain pitch in certain counts and they're ready, waiting for it, maybe so. But I'm still waiting for the day that TJ Friedl gets that bunt, that left-handed, the lefty-on-lefty matchup, and he tries to bunt for a hit. I mean, he's still getting away with it, man. It's amazing to me that these guys are still letting TJ Friedl bunt lefty-on-lefty and pull bunts for base hits. I'd be cheating the second baseman in, and I'd be taking that first baseman and moving him down off the line a little bit so he can get to that ball. And I'd be telling the pitchers they better be busting at their butt over to first base to make sure they can beat him to the bag. But I'm happy. I'm thankful for it. I hope he continues to do it, but it's insane to me how many times he's capable of getting away with it. But yeah, Hunter Greene, just to recap, amazing. If you didn't get a chance to watch it because you were doing other things on Sunday, it was one of the better starts that he's had in Reds uniform, and really it reminds me of another big start he had, and people forget it, but he had another big start 2 years ago in 2023 against the Twins late in the season when you felt like your back was up against the rope and you needed a win, and Hunter Greene went out and absolutely shoved. Now, I'm not saying this is the same scenario as the other one, but there's been a couple times now where you've asked the guy that you're relying on to be your ace to go be the ace and go give your team a chance to win, and he has absolutely delivered. So that is obviously a positive thing moving forward. All right, as always, you can text and or call 988. You can also visit mantherapy.org. It's okay to not be okay. It's an anonymous hotline. Just as a reminder, 24/7. You can text and or call 988 to be clear. Super chats. We have a couple more here that I want to get to before we round out the show. Look at this. Our man behind the scenes, executive producer Craig Sandlin has been on his tail in the back end. I'm just going to read it off the screen instead of YouTube. Why not? Super chat from Vandy81. He says, Elly's batting average up, OBP near the same, power way down, and has a ton of speed, so why not move him up in the lineup? Makes me think our manager isn't capable. Listen, I don't really know if it's worth the time and effort and energy to sit here and discuss Tito and the decisions he makes and whether or not they make sense and he's a big problem or not a big problem. I've said it once, I said it 1,000 times. Nick, I think we could have had a chance. It wouldn't have been good for the show. It wouldn't have been good for probably many people in the offseason that were looking for content. But I do think that if we said how we truly felt at the very beginning of all this, we would have told people that, just like we told them when everyone was asking for David Bell to get fired, that this isn't the saving grace, folks. This isn't the answer. It's not the answer if things are going great. It's not the answer if things are going terribly bad. Now, maybe if there's a huge culture problem, so be it. But I don't think that's really been the case in both areas. I think there's been a lack of production from the Major League Baseball players that are on the field more times than not, and that's what's causing some of these issues. As far as leaving him in the 3-hole just because or moving him up in the lineup just because his power's down, his batting average is up, his OBP on that, yeah, it makes logical sense. But as far as a speed perspective, in my opinion, again, just watching with my eyes, he's not really been the same type of guy even when he gets on base that he once was. And maybe that's part of the quad situation, Nick. I would actually prefer to move him down until you felt like he was maybe back to himself again. And then you've always asked for him to be the leadoff and or the 2-hole, but that's never happened either. Your thoughts on that, Super Chat?
Yeah, I'd move him up. I'd bat him leadoff tomorrow if it was up to me. I mean, I just, if any equation of the Reds getting hot over the next 19 games, doesn't it feel like Elly De La Cruz has to be a big part of it?
That's why he gets the most criticism. That's exactly why he gets the most criticism. Like it or not. But when you're the guy at the top that everybody's hoping for, it might not be fair. It might not be the perfect slice of equality when it comes to who should get blame and who shouldn't get blame on this team. But you just said it yourself. That's why he is primary target A when things don't go right and he's not playing well, is what you just said.
I guess I just hate the way that people fan, I guess. I guess that's my problem. It's
well,
just the guy's making $700,000 this year. Has been the Reds' best player all year, even with an atrocious month. I just don't really see the need to come out of pitchfork with that guy. But to each their own, I guess. I guess I just have to accept people.
I think you nailed it right on the head with what you just did. I mean, honestly, Nick, I think your problem lies at the end of the day with the value that Elly provides, with how much he gets paid, and you aren't really overly concerned about whether he's their best player and or whether he's been hyped up or the superstar. You're looking at it from strictly not just a math. I'm not trying to make it sound like you're just straight mathing it, but I do think that you're trying to find value on this team, and you're saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to provide this guy some grace when he's not playing well because of all the things that he does outside of blah, 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 blah in this month and how many wins he's helped us get, when there's all these other players that need to help way more than Elly. The truth is that the vast majority of the fan base isn't going to do that, man. They're going to show up on Friday night against the Mets. They're going to get their hot dog. They're going to watch their third game of the year, and they're going to be extremely excited that the Reds have a chance to do something special, and they're going to see that their favorite baseball team gets the bases loaded in the ninth inning, and they're going to watch their supposed superstar, as they've been told by everybody, watch 3 strikes down the, not down the middle, whatever. He watches 3 strikes, doesn't swing once, and then all of a sudden now they leave the game, Nick, and they're going to get on socials, they're going to do whatever and say that Elly stinks. That's the reality.
Maybe we need to put a giant poster of Jeimer Candelario's face.
Right, he's the real scapegoat.
Like this guy, he gets cut. He's in Scranton. Everyone,
yeah.
You
know who in 2024? You know who in 2024 also was Jeimer Candelario, and now he's the hype of the town.
No, Marte, yeah.
Marte. He was gone all year because he got busted for steroids that he took, and nobody seemed to care because everybody else didn't perform well. It is what it is, man. It's not going to be a fair situation for Elly ever. Michael Roth says, question, is Elly closer to Marte or Aaron Judge / Ohtani? Sorry, I raised Nick's blood pressure. Well, right now, I think it's fair to say it's Marte, right? I mean, let's be honest. Right now, but I would that question's going.
I would say so. I think if I'll try to answer it with my best real math talk here. I would say Elly's probably projected to be a 5-win player in 2026. Marte, you probably are thinking 3.5 over a full season. Ohtani and Judge are probably in the 8 range. So yeah, I think he is. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's close though. I don't, and I think I wouldn't be shocked if Elly next year had a higher wins above replacement as a batter than Judge. Playing shortstop helps a lot.
Yeah, I think that...
And I think Elly's going to be back. I think Elly's going to have a drastic improvement defensively as shortstop. That'd be my biggest prediction this offseason.
And I would openly say that if he doesn't have a drastic improvement in shortstop and Matt McLain is back and healthy and plays the way that he did in 2023 when we were all excited about him, I do think that at that point there will be probably a very, very difficult decision that this front office is going to have to make. But we're not going to get there, or that decision, to be clear, is not going to get made until I think that the whole Elly experiment at shortstop has ran its course. And that course doesn't get ran fully until, in my opinion, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 weeks into the season next year. And the only way it would be 3 or 4 weeks, Nick, is if it goes terribly bad at the beginning. And it's almost becomes this toxic thing, in my opinion. But we'll find out together. We'll see. Ultimately, I don't know what happens. Ned Flanders says he's not an Elly apologist, but unless I'm missing something, he's only really had one bad month. So is everyone else in the lineup on every team. With 19 games left, I want Elly playing every day. Yeah, I think that's putting it very, very vaguely if we're being completely fair and honest. What's a bad month for one of the team's best players on another club that's trying to make the postseason? I don't think is totally fair. I think if we're going to say that Elly's their best player, then if we're going to compare them to the best player on another team, Elly has severely lacked performance comparatively speaking to them. And if we're going to compare him to just our players, well, then I guess he's playing on a team that has a lot of mid or below mid baseball players that are position players. So I think that's my take on that.
Yeah, I have to look through every player. I mean, I think there's a lot more stars across baseball that have had a month close to what Elly had in August than maybe I think a lot of people probably realize. I don't think every star, like I just looked up too, like Aaron Judge and Ohtani, they haven't had a month anywhere close to that bad. But I think there are probably a lot of teams' best players that if you looked at it, if you're as a Reds fan, you don't watch them every day. I think you'd be like, oh yeah, they've been great all year. Well, they probably had a terrible month too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my bigger concern is not his. Here's where I'm at with this. I'm tired of acting like everything's okay with it. Like, that's where I'm at. Clearly, there's an issue in some regard, whether it's injury, whether it's development, whether it's psychological, whether there's a mental block there. If he's as good as we think he is, and I do think he's the guy that we hope him to be. You don't struggle this long. You don't hit it. You don't just not accidentally hit a home run, Nick. Like, I don't know. There's something there that's bigger than just a little bit of a quote unquote struggle. Another super chat. Rolf says, I'd like to ask Barry Larkin where he's going on vacation after the season. He might get super excited and talk about that. Love you, Barry. He probably looks at some of these infielders and just, I think that the rolling eyes emoji is where we're going. Yeah, listen, Barry had obviously some issues at the beginning of his career with errors as well. I don't think it's fair to sit here and compare and say, well, look at Barry in his prime. I think the bigger picture of all of it is trying to ask yourself, is Elly's footwork the same as Barry's footwork when he was making all those errors? Is Elly going to, if that's the case and Barry had bad footwork when he was younger, how did he get better? Is the development that Barry was capable of doing, is it going to be the same for Elly or not? Because the one thing I think that maybe, Nick, we don't talk about on this show enough, or we just assume it's going to happen, really is just the development in general, and just assuming that guys, are going to get better. Because one thing that I do, and I haven't done I've not followed this franchise nearly as long as you have on a day-to-day basis, but I'd like to start to try to figure out if we have some kind of organizational issue with development in general, comparatively speaking, some of the better franchises. If we're trying to be the Guardians, or we're trying to be the Rays, or we're trying to be one of these smaller market franchises that seem to get the most out of their guys, we might sit here and play the prospect game and get prospects up here, but there's something in the recipe maybe that we're missing. It seems like we don't have the actual perfect formula. And I'm not saying that we don't. I'm just saying that it doesn't seem like we do. And I'm trying to figure out what that is. And I'm rounding that back out to saying, Nick, some of that might be development. Like, why aren't some of these guys getting better? Is CES seems like he's progressing, and then all of a sudden we don't believe him at all. And I'm not trying to use Will Benson as another example, but it's like these guys seem to like make strides, and then all of a sudden it's just like we either quit on them or they don't get better. One of the two.
Yeah, I mean, you also do have to remember, like, the Reds' pitching development has seemed to seem to have had a
Yeah.
pretty good couple
No
years.
doubt.
I mean, that's
But that's a different
also
guy.
part.
Is that fair or not? Like that's a whole
Yeah, no,
nother
it is.
department.
It is. It's weird though. Like if you would have gone back 2 years ago, I think everyone would have been like, "Oh, the Reds pitching development has been bad," right? Like that would have been probably our biggest concern at the midway point in 2023 was that they're not developing enough pitchers. The pitching's a disaster, and then it's like really completely flipped on the offense. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard, but like Marte's had a great year. And I think McLean. I'm bullish on Matt McLean.
I think it's a good take.
I mean, the more I watch him, I feel good. I really do. I feel good about him going into next year. Maybe I shouldn't. But like he's been worth a win and a half, and he's been atrocious at times this year.
I don't think we've given him enough credit for his injury too, to be fair to him.
Well, yeah. And well, I mean, and the fact that he's played 128 games, like, I mean, remember the first month of the season, we didn't think he was going to stay on the field. Like
Right.
it felt like he played 6 games, he get hurt, played 6 games, he get hurt. And he's been out there every single day. So I think for him getting through a full season, knock on wood, he's still got 3 weeks left. I think it's a big deal for him kind of going into next year. All right. So yeah, I mean, you have a good McLean, a good Elly, a good Marte. Your offense and your development looks quite a bit better. I think right now you're kind of at a low point just because there's been a lot of guys that have it hasn't gone their way, and it's a lot of them have been
Right.
for multiple reasons. But I think at some point I would also like this organization to either move the fences back or maybe try to give some of these guys that are power hitters a better opportunity.
Yeah, it's almost like put the positions that profile for certain types of players. We need to fill those positions with those types of players.
Yeah, the Reds have not got enough production out of first base, left field. They didn't get enough production until Marte established himself in right field, and they didn't get enough production at DH. Those are offensive positions. Right. Those are positions that you lose value in your wins above replacement equation because you're supposed to put good hitters in those spots. And overall, they've been below average, every single one of them, until Noelvi Marte filled that role in right field. And that's made McLean look worse. That's made Elly look worse. That's made Friedel look worse. I think there'd be a lot less like what I said at the beginning, like Mookie Betts. Like he has a 96 OPS plus, and I doubt there's a whole lot of people, man, Mookie Betts, man, he's let us down this year. Oh, man, he's been terrible.
He's been great at shortstop, to be fair to him.
Yeah, but he's been a below average hitter making $300 million.
Well, money doesn't matter out there. That's the difference.
But yes, but they also their premium positions or their premium hitting positions have pretty well all had success.
Yeah, I get your point. I'm saying that no one in LA gives a damn about how much any of those guys are making because it has no impact on their ability to do anything from a franchise perspective.
Yeah.
It's like asking a rich kid how much lunch costs for him. Do you think they give a damn that when they look at the menu, whether or not they're going to get the extra set of fries or the extra set of ice cream, that they even factor in the cost of how much that is and whether or not they can afford it? No, that's what the Dodgers currently are. They don't have to worry about that. We certainly do. We're sitting here counting down the days that King Griffey Jr. comes off the books. We're sitting here fretting about the fact that Jeimer Candelario is hogging down how much money we're making. We got fans that are sitting here saying that we spent too much money on Nick Martinez, relatively speaking, of what he means to this team. That's where we're at. Which, again, that's a Major League Baseball issue that I will take up in the appropriate time when those discussions are being had, which are probably coming in the not-too-distant future. All right, the last super chat is from Rolf. No, my bad. Grant Harmon says, Elly is on an accelerated timeline. He will be a perennial MVP candidate at some point, but the Reds fans need it to be within the next 3 seasons. Not fair, but reality. Well, that's all expectations. Again, none of that's guaranteed. Obviously, We're projecting him to be in that spot. And that's where I say that once again. I'm not trying to say that this is your fault, Grant. I'm not trying to say it's your fault, Nick. But when we say those things and we say them out loud and we let other people in the fan base hear those things, guess what happens when that player goes out and doesn't play as well? They get utterly frustrated because they feel like a guy's overrated. They think a guy isn't nowhere near what everyone else says he is, and that, quite frankly, just pisses all those types. Not to say that you need to bow down to those fans, but I'm just saying don't act surprised when there's a firestorm in the fan base and on the socials when we sit here and project this guy to be an MVP candidate, and he's been one of the least productive players on the team down the race. So, in regards to Elly, I don't know. We've kind of seems like we did a whole chapter on Elly tonight, or a whole book. I don't know. Do you have anything to say to that?
Do you want to mention? Do you want to mention it? Do you want to mention the scooping at first base?
Well, I don't even want to go down that path because I know I feel like it's justified to talk about, because I do think that Elly's errors and a lot of maybe some of the situations that he's found himself in could have been helped upon. Like, you could have had a teammate that covered you up. Like, you could have had someone else that picked you up. No doubt about it. Like I said the other night, if Gavin Lux gets a base hit, Nick, guess what? It takes a lot of pressure off of Elly. No one's talking about it that much. Quite literally, I don't even know if Elly being unclutch, or whatever term you want to use, is being said on Friday night if Gavin Lux gets the base hit. And I also would say that if
Acuña's brother doesn't make a great play, maybe even. Not even.
I would also say that, yeah, if you can scoop a baseball at first base, I don't know how many errors it cuts down on, but maybe 4 or 5 errors, and then all of a sudden his whole outlook on his season is different. His defensive runs saved and all the other metrics, his outs above average, look a lot different because they're not factoring in.
I think that outs above average doesn't. I think the reason Elly isn't as bad in those as he is with the errors is because they actually do factor in the scoops.
Do they really? That seems crazy. If they,
I'm pretty sure.
I just assumed they would give you they're basically giving you an error, which caused a runner to get on base based off of the way the ball was hit and what are the odds are that you make that play. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know enough about
defensive runs saved. Defensive run saves. I know would factor in a first baseman's ability, because that is that's a human. That's deciding that, and they're gonna take into account some of the ones that could have been scooped, and they give them like so much of a percentage, I think, of a run for each play. It's a whole calculation that they get to. Outs above average, I'm not 100% sure on, to be honest, but I do know defensive run saved would put that in. Was Hal Morris a good scooper?
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's the question I need to know.
Right. And listen,
anyone back in the 90s that watched baseball close, was Hal Morris a good scooper?
I don't know, man. I know that the digs aren't nearly as hard as I think they are, but at the same time, I also don't want to give him every excuse. There's you can hit the guy in the chest. In fact, can I tell you a little bit of the truth? I got to be honest. That one day that Cozart was on the X app talking about how it was totally on Elly, and it's not Steer's fault that he didn't dig that out, and the ball hit literally a half an inch from Steer's glove on the bounce. I'd be lying if I didn't go to the MLB film room and was digging up some old clips of perhaps some games that happened back in the day, and the fact that Joey Votto, I don't know, he's pretty good. Like, you go back, Joey Votto's digging balls everywhere, and it's like, now, to be fair, I couldn't find any for the exact situation that I was looking for personally.
I found one.
And
I was doing the same thing.
And he was hitting him in the chest. I would say this. I seen like 10 straight plays, and I got to be frank, 9 of them he hit the guy right almost immediately in the chest. So I kind of I don't say I gave up, but I was like, all right, I'm going to live and I'm going to die on this hill. Or what would be the right word? I will concede this argument. So anyway,
Mike Hart brought up a really good point. Mike Reichert did some research. Let's mention this. It was kind of like I got to. Defensive run save does take into account scooping. Outs above average doesn't, which is why Spencer Steer has 2 very different numbers. Outs above average, Steer ranks really high. Defensive run saved, he does not, which seems like a pretty big flaw in outs above average, which also might have been part of why Elly last year was significantly higher in outs above average than defensive run saved.
this is where I would also say having legitimately good scouts and having people that know baseball that watch all of these games, it matters. It also matters a lot to factor in those and compare them a little bit to the league, or the analytic part of the game. Because I'm just going to say it openly, Spencer Steer has done an admirable job over there. Spencer Steer is a guy that I perhaps beat on a little too much. I've been a little critical, a little too much of Spencer Steer, because he's really just another guy on this baseball team that has been asked to do something that he's got really little to no business doing. And for some dumb reason, we decided that we were just going to make him a permanent fixture over there. And I openly am saying that's not totally his fault. But I think if you're a reasonable fan or someone that watches this game that knows it well, you can openly admit that Spencer Steer is not really as good or nearly as good as a defensive first baseman as everyone wants to make out. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Steer. He's been I'll even say good player. He's been a good player for this team holistically since he's gotten called up, and he's certainly made a positive impact, and he has been available. Whether he's been hurt or not hurt, he has at least been available. And you can give him that credit, and you can also give Elly that credit. There's a lot of players on this team that you can't say that about. So I'm, again, trying to give Spencer Steer as many flowers as I can here to make it very clear that I'm not trying to dog on him. I'm just openly saying that I think this offseason, which leads me into the next point with Roth, this offseason we can get into all that, Nick. We can talk about what we actually think this team needs to do and more. In regards to Roth's super chat, he said, let's talk Seabox Reds offseason. What's the schedule look like for all the loyal followers? Well, Nick's getting ready to have a baby. The reality is that Nick doesn't know this yet, but I am going to put a forceful ban on him to do content for at least a serviceable amount of time. I don't do many things. I usually give a lot of autonomy to Nick. I let him do his own thing. He pretty much does whatever he likes to do, which is typically work overly hard and do a lot of things for this company and not complain about it. But I do think that at some point we got to have a little balance here. And I'm going to try to figure out what that ban or what that time frame looks like, that he's not allowed to do anything and he has to just relax and try to recharge the batteries, because I do think when the batteries get relatively low, you're ready just to kind of kick it all in and be done with it. And I'll be honest with you, at some point during this whole debacle that I'll call the Reds going 2-8 in their last 10 or 3-7 in their last 10, I've been there. I've been pretty damn close. And I don't put nearly the time, effort, energy in that Nick does with this franchise. And this franchise can beat you down a little bit. So having said that, we'll see how long that is. But I'm sure that when we get to what we'll call a free market for the off season and content, we'll be back and we'll be all engine steam ahead, or whatever term you're supposed to use there. But we're gonna have a dead period. We're gonna go NCAA dead period style, and we'll see how long that lasts. That's it for the supers. Let's jump into MILB whenever you're ready, Nick, and then we will do the who, what, when, where, and why. But thank you, as always, to everybody. Hit the like button if you haven't already while we jump into Reds MILB.
Yeah, another good day, good couple weeks here for Reds MILB. We'll start off with AAA Louisville. They won 6-1 over St. Paul. The Bats have won 9 straight games, and they are 13-1 in their last 14 games. Christian Encarnacion Strand, 2 for 4, homer and a double. CES now 4 home runs and 12 extra base hits over his last 16 games. Rhys Hines just continues to perform. 3 for 4, hit his 23rd home run of the season. Hines is on fire in September, hitting 500, 3 home runs so far in 7 games. He's had a great year. 303 average, 942 OPS, now at 99 games this season. Blake Tunn walked twice, also stole his 20th bag of the year. Hector Rodriguez was 0 for 5. Good start today from Chase Petty. Love to see him finish the year strong. It's been a obviously tough year for him. Goes 6 1/3, 7 hits, 1 run, 2 walk, 4 strikeouts. The only run that Petty allowed was on a solo home run in the 6th inning. Sam Mole has pitched pretty well since he got demoted. Went inning and 2/3, just gave up 1 hit, no runs, no walks. Mole in 3 games since being optioned, just 1 hit, no runs in 3 2/3 innings, and more importantly, 0 walks. Buck Farmer also continues to pitch well. He threw a scoreless inning, struck out 3 batters. Down to Double-A Chattanooga, they fell 2-1 to Birmingham. Lookouts, of course, they play their first playoff game next week, September 16th. Cam Collier 1 for 4. Collier has been playing very well, though, of late. Love to see him ending the year strong. He's hitting .357 over his last 19 games. Edwin Arroyo 1 for 4 with a triple. Trevor Kunsel threw another scoreless inning for the Lookouts. Down to High Eighth, the Dayton Dragons, one of the coolest stories in minor league baseball that you'll ever see. They win 3-1 over Lansing. The Dragons finished the season 18-1 in their last 19 games. An incredible end of the year. The Dragons were 34-75 on August 16th. They had lost 6 games in a row, and they roll off an 18-1 stretch over the last 19 games. Credit to them and their coaching staff and everyone who kept that thing going. Good to see them finish the year strong. Carlos Sanchez 0 for 3, did walk twice. Peyton Stovall 1 for 4. Alexander Vargas had a nice end of the year. He was 2 for 4, stole 2 bases. Carlos Jorge is probably the player down at Dayton that I have the most hope on him for the future. He did not play in the finale. He got the day off. He had played in 23 consecutive games prior to that. But Jorge did at least finish the year strong. Hit .324, 134 WRC plus over his final 27 games. Jorge, another player, there was a lot of players that had disappointing years there. Hopefully they can bounce back next year. Jorge may be a guy we see in the Arizona Fall League. That would be something to watch. And last but not least, Daytona, they fall 4-2 to Palm Beach in their regular season finale. The Tortugas actually finished 1 game under 500. They lost 3 games in a row after they had clinched, but they will host St. Lucie. That's the Mets affiliate. Game 1, best of 3 series starting Tuesday at 6:35. Tyson Lewis was 0 for 3 with a walk. Mason Neville walked twice. Kyle Henley on base twice, stole his 57th base, now 57 for 66 in stolen base attempts. Alfredo Duno and Arnaldo Lantigua both got the day off. That's your Reds MLB. Trace will be tracking the Tortugas on Tuesday night. Little playoff action. Reds don't play till 9:30, so yeah, that'll be exciting.
There you go. There's some playoff baseball. That's the type of playoff baseball that we're definitely talking about. Yeah, the Tortugas. You know what's funny about that? It'd be nice at some point. Maybe they upgraded the broadcast equipment down there in Daytona, but that's here nor there.
Game 2, the Mets is elite. The Mets broadcast is elite.
Yeah, well,
for low A.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Maybe I don't know how many people are keeping tabs on the quality of broadcasts for low A baseball, but Nick Kirby's definitely going to be one of those. So if you're somebody that's looking for perhaps the review, Nick's the place to go as always for most things that are baseball and or Reds baseball. We have who, what, when, where, and why. Before we do that, Nick, I just want to say one thing. I was just thinking. Is it insane to think that really you play all these damn games, you're getting all worked up about all this stuff, and the reality is we were basically an inning and a half from being tied for the last wild card spot in the playoffs, and everybody wants to forget about this, but we were in a tie baseball game in the 8th inning against the Mets with an opportunity to take the lead, and I think it was Tyler Stevenson ended up. I don't know if he struck out or bounced out, perhaps in the 8th inning there with the bases loaded, if I remember right. I could be completely wrong. That's been a little while back, by the way. But that was the series that was directly after the All-Star break. And then you had the bases loaded with nobody out with a chance, obviously, to win on Friday night. And I get it. You could always say, what if, because they did win 2 of the 3 in both of those series. And you could say, well, they could have lost one of the other games, obviously. But it is just kind of wild to think back and be like, they find a way to win that game to sweep them on the way out of the All-Star break, and they find a way to win on Friday night. And as crazy as they've been, or not as, I guess, for as bad as they've been over the last week and a half, they'd be tied currently with the Mets for the last wild card spot, and they'd have the tiebreaker.
If we want to go down the sad train,
we don't have to do it, but
you're taking 2 out of 3 from the Mets both times. Like I'm not gonna. It is what it is there. I think the Reds going 2-5 against a Braves team that's terrible this year.
Yeah.
3-4 against the Marlins. How about 2-4 against the Nationals, 4-6 against the Cardinals, only 6-4. I'll say only 6-4 against the Pirates. They only faced Skeens one time all year. That's where the season was lost if this team doesn't pull off a miracle. I know that I know, yes, you make up more ground quickly, but you can't expect to sweep the New York Mets. I think that's where the season was lost. And there was a lot of games in those that were very winnable games. And even the Brewers, the Brewers are great, but the Reds had, I think, 4 games against the Brewers that you feel like you should have at least won 2 of them. I mean, they had 2 1-0 losses and then 2 other games where they completely blew massive leads.
No, listen, if you want to go down the death wish that is basically trying to figure out what you could have done in 2025, it's going to be a long and painful journey as you go through all the situations that they've had and they weren't capable of executing on. But here's the truth. I've already said I think it's unrealistic to sit here and act like they have a legitimate chance, but that said, they're mathematically still alive. And when they're mathematically still alive, I think that a reasonable person could say, hey, well, what the hell? Why not just kind of ride this thing out? You've made it this far. Why not ride it out until you know for a fact that it's over with and done? If the Dayton Dragons, who won basically, like you said, 30 games and how many ever tries?
34 and 75.
Exactly. If the Dayton Dragons can find a way to win 18 and 19 games or whatever the hell you just said, then I'd like to think maybe the Cincinnati Reds can. Will they? We will find out. But there's 19, to be clear, 19 games left. That's what we have. And let's make this the final parting thought before we jump into the who, what, when, where, and why. The number they need to win to get it done, Nick.
I'll throw out like a number. I mean, but it's just pure speculation on the Mets. I would say 13, and that would be the Mets going 9-8, and then you would tie. So I think
that's cool. I was just saying I didn't want to say my number. I was just seeing how
16?
close it was to your. No, I had 14.
14. Okay, so we're close.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you went 13, if you went 13-6, then the Mets would have to go. If the Mets go 9-8, you would beat them. So you would literally, you'd be hoping for the Mets to be 1 game above 500. So I think that's realistic. But the Mets could be way better. The Mets could be way worse. That's what makes this maddening. For me, I think, Trace, it's just keep staying alive. I mean, you get it to like 2 games in the final week of the season, you put more pressure on the Mets. And the Mets they've actually been a part of a few brutal late season collapses. So you kind of you could feed into that whole New York, oh, poor us energy that they for some reason have.
Oh, they live in it's a big city mentality, man. It is what it is. As far as what's left here, we gotta survive in advance of a couple other teams as well. I know that you're suggesting that we're tied with the Giants and we shouldn't worry about them. They're 7-3 in their last 10. The Diamondbacks are 7-3 in their last 10, and the Cardinals are also 7-3 in their last 10. Now, do I think that you need to worry about all 3 of them if you're going to go win 14 games? No. Obviously not. If you're also sitting here asking yourself, what do the Giants have left? I'll tell you here real quick before we jump into it. They pretty much have to play the Diamondbacks. So as I said before, you're either going to gain a game on somebody no matter what there, or lose a game no matter what. They then play the Dodgers. They play the Diamondbacks again. Play the Dodgers. Then they play the Cardinals. But they do have 3 games against the Rockies to end the year. So it all depends on how well they can get through this next 2 weeks to see what they have left at the end of the year. But as I said, and I think you're saying the same thing, really we need to worry about ourselves. They got to win 14 games, 13 or 14 games, which is asking maybe too much, but we'll find out. And speaking of winning games, we got more to play. Who, what, when, where, and why, Nick, and hopefully they can find a way to win.
Reds are going to take on the San Diego Padres, a team that has they've not played well against. The Reds are 8-20 against the Padres since the start of 2021. That's the worst record against any team. And more ugly news, Reds are 2-12 in their last 14 games in San Diego, dating back to 2019. The Reds did take 2 of 3 from the Padres back in July. The only game the Reds lost, they actually blew a 3-0 and 4-1 lead. There's another one of those games that we were talking about. The series pitching matchups, Nick Lodolo against Yu Darvish on Monday night. Yu Darvish has had a really brutal year, has struggled of late, has only gone 4 innings in 3 of his last 4 starts. Nick Lodolo, of course, it's only his second start since coming back off the IL and then having the whole sickness thing. Tuesday is 9:40. Zach Littell against TBD. Might be Michael King, who's a really good pitcher for the Padres coming off the IL. And then Wednesday, Andrew Abbott against Nick Pivetta. Pivetta is also having an incredible year. 13-5, 2.85 ERA. That's an 840 start time. So the Reds are certainly not going to see, not going to have any easy matchups outside of maybe Yu Darvish tomorrow, but Yu Darvish is obviously still a talented pitcher. A lot of Reds have not seen him a lot. The only one that's seen him much is Gavin Lux. But yeah, the Reds are 6 games behind the Padres. So you sweep the Padres, you would really make it interesting at least. And then while you're doing that, the Mets are playing the Phillies for 4 games. I think if you win 2 or 3 in San Diego, that would be pretty impressive. But unfortunately, that's kind of just the unfortunate place of where we're at, because winning 2 out of 3 would be a pretty incredible effort, in my opinion.
Yeah, listen, I don't. It's unrealistic to expect them to sweep anybody. We've said that 1,000 times on this show, but yeah, it's almost like in order to do something special, you got to do something special. I think there's a lot of people that are going to be very pessimistic when it comes to this road trip, and I don't want to sit here and act as if you should feel one way or the other, but they do play the A's. They do play the Cardinals.
The Mets and Padres do also still play a 3-game series against each other, which would be that's what makes it interesting if you sweep the Padres, because then you would be 3 games behind the Padres, and you're probably at least 3 games behind the Mets. So if you're 3 games behind both teams, when those 2 teams play each other, well, there's a real chance to put a dent in it. So if the Reds swept the Padres, that would be one of the most incredible efforts. I'm not saying that's even remotely logical to think they could do it, but you could. The Padres haven't been playing great. They're 3-7 in the last 10, and 2 of those wins were against the Rockies.
All right. Well, we'll find out. They got some night baseball headed your way, 9:40 Eastern, again, as a reminder. But we will be back better than ever, hopefully your way. Myself and Nick will be there every step of the way here over the next week or so. And then obviously Nick has another kid on the way. And as a reminder, I just want to let you know, Nick, there wasn't a super chat, but I did see an excellent comment that I do want to at least give a shout out. I don't have the name, but I do want to say that every time that Nick Kirby gets some downtime or maybe some reprieve, another kid's on the way. So, maybe there's some truth to that as well, Nick.
Can assure you there won't be another one.
All right. Well, you never say never. All right. Well, that'll do it for this show. Appreciate everybody. I know that right now there's some mixed emotions on how you should feel as a Reds fan. But as I've always, I'm not going to apologize for either of us to sit here and say how we truly feel or our true emotions on this show. If you're, I don't know what the right word is to say. I'm not trying to be overly ridiculous here, but if you're somebody that gets overly passionate and thinks, I can't stand this. Nick's always doing this for Elly, blah, blah, blah. Or there goes Trace. He's toxic all the time. We're just talking Reds baseball, and we're trying to talk through maybe the way that we view it and how we feel about it. And hopefully you can appreciate that, if nothing else. And I'd also say, it is tough when you watch something that you've been hoping for about 5 months on a daily basis kind of get maybe ripped right from you and not feel at least somewhat sour about it. We'll find out if that's the truth or not, because they got more games to be played, and we'll see you right here on Chatterbox Reds. Take care, everybody. Myself and Nick will see you tomorrow. Take care.